So, because Spain controlled such a huge amount of the land in North and South America for a long, long time, I mean, really, the Spanish Empire, which begins to be conquered and constructed in the kind of early to mid 1500s, lasts well into the 1800s, and it really isn't until the very end of the 19th century during the Spanish American War that the last pieces of Spain's American empire um, are are lost or gained from the perspective of the Cubans who got their independence, right? But it's almost it's 250 plus years where Spain is really the dominant force in large parts of the Americas, and you can tell because that's the language that is spoken pretty much throughout Central and South America. Although it's different from the Spanish that is spoken on the European continent, the accent and other aspects of it. Um, and also, I should mention it's not just Central and South America. Large parts of the Caribbean, the islands off the coast of Central America, and really large parts of the United States, from California to Texas to Florida to Louisiana, were by first settled by indigenous people, and then the first Europeans were not the British but the Spanish, and there are kind of relics of that time period all over, evident in the language that people speak, the names that people have, the religions and kind of religious practices that are specific to some of those regions, which are often a mix between Catholicism and sometimes indigenous religious beliefs or practices. Right, so things like Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead in Mexico, is an example of that, sort of mixing Catholicism with um, Mexica and other indigenous ideas. The architecture, if you think about, if you've ever been to the Southwest or to California and seen some of the old Spanish mission buildings, um, the food, the laws, all this stuff is influenced by the fact that Spain was the main colonial presence for all that time. And today, really, the category, the kind of ethnic category, Latino, um, and Hispanic, which mean two different things. Hispanic means people from Spanish-speaking regions, so it includes people from Spain as well as Central American, but specifically the term Latino refers to people from Central and South America who, not exclusively, but probably the overwhelming majority of whom descend from both Spanish and indigenous people, and in many places also have African ancestors because of the role of African slavery in these regions. One last important effect of this time period is something called the Black Legend, which is basically like a distorted piece of propaganda, basically, that was spread by Spain's main competitors in colonizing the New World, which were Britain and France. And the Black Legend was basically the idea that because there's something wrong with the Spanish, they were exceptionally brutal and really the only ones who were brutal in their way of colonizing. And while there's certainly some aspects of Spanish brutality that were unique, the Black Legend kind of was, in some ways, an attempt by the British and French to pin on the Spanish, to associate their main rival with any horrible stuff that happened in the process of colonization. And there was a lot of horrible stuff that happened in the process of colonization. And it is completely false to suggest, as the Black Legend did, that only Spain killed in the name of Jesus Christ, or only Spain enslaved indigenous people, or only Spain stole their gold, or infected them with diseases, or raped and tortured them and killed babies, and all of these things. And while it was very well publicized, especially through the writings of a monk, a Spanish monk named De las Casas, and the brutality was true, the idea that Spain was unique, not so much.